I shared a room with two of my brothers when I was a child. I must have been around 7 or 8 when I suddenly saw something odd at night. There were multiple dark green figures, somewhat human shaped, but without facial features. They walked in a circle. They went through the wall. They never interacted with me or went outside of that circle, but every night they came back. The pacing was different, sometimes fast, sometimes almost at a standstill. On the other side of the wall they were walking through was my parents' bedroom. They had a picture of Maria hanging on their wall on that exact spot. Because I kept seeing them, I moved to my parents' bedroom, never seeing them again. My second experience was a few years later. I was 11 and we moved to another house. Still sharing the room with my brothers, one night I woke up. I could barely move. And across the room, I saw this white, large figure of a man. It had an orange chicken-like beak and angry orange eyes. It was looking at my brother sleeping. I crawled underneath my blanket and closed my eyes. When I looked back up, it was still there. It turned towards the wall. Every time I looked again, it moved close to the wall furthest away from me and eventually went through it. Now, I've had sleep paralysis throughout my life, but this felt different. My last experience came 2 years ago. My mother fell ill with cancer, and I took her in. Because she was having some issues due to the chemo, she was taken into the hospital. During the time she was there, I suddenly felt something during the night. It was this presence. I didn't see anything or hear anything, but just felt someone was in her room. It felt like death, and it felt like it was searching. Every night it was the same, and this went on for weeks. Suddenly, it was gone. 2 days later, my mother passed away. I always thought it was death looking for her, and it had finally found her. What does worry me is that recently I felt a likewise presence again during the night. It doesn't feel like death, but evil. I'll start this off by saying that I've never personally experienced anything paranormal, nor do I ever want to. Something about it bothers me, so I'm thankful that I have no personal stories to relate here. The story I've decided to share is one that I heard from a family friend at a New Year's Eve party in 2011, on a private beach in Sydney, Australia, as the sun was going down. She was a middle-aged lady who had begun to discuss this house that her friend lived in, which was supposedly haunted. She described a number of things that her friend and her friend's family members had experienced on a regular basis there. The details of most of those stories escape my mind now, and because this is third hand, I'll only share the single story that sticks vividly in my mind that she told me that evening. Her friend had an infant child, and that child would always sleep in a cot in the same room, where the child would be left alone during the night. The cot was always positioned parallel to one of the walls in the room, but not so that it rested against the wall. It was instead placed a few feet away from it. The mother became concerned when she discovered that each morning, when she would come to check on the baby, the cot had moved so that it was touching the wall. The baby was too small to be capable of moving it, and the cot was not on wheels. She would always pull the cot back to where it should have been, a few feet away from it, and each morning she would find it against the wall in the exact same way. Well, just for the sake of it, either out of curiosity or frustration, the mother decided to move the cot much further away from the wall this time, into the very centre of the room. Of course, when she came back the next morning, she found the cot had once again been moved so that it was resting against that very same wall. The activity is ramping up tenfold. I'm wary of sharing any actual names, including my own, and you might see why. And before you go off immediately writing this off as someone high off crack, trying to make a piss-poor ghost story, I assure you I'm not. This is my story that myself and 3 others know of. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm only here for two reasons. To see if anyone has had the same experience and/or can help with me in writing this thing away from me. So with all that out of the way, let's start. I will name myself A. I was 21 at the time of this incident. I'm now 22. I worked many different jobs, mainly the food industry. My father was part of the HQ staff of a security company that still operates today. I eventually decided to try my hand in something completely different. Security, of course. I worked for the company for about 8 months as a level 2 officer, and after about 1 year, I moved up to level 3 officer. Level 3 is someone who is authorized to carry and handcuff, according to the company's policies and the client's policies. I was moved to my first ever post as a level 3, a hospital located in San Antonio, Texas. I won't give out the name. Anyways, I worked at said hospital for about 3 months, until I was told there was an abandoned section of the hospital. I was offered a tour. Before I go further, I should explain who was with me upon entering the abandoned section. First up is Agent Y. Agent Y was a former Secret Service agent who retired and eventually ended up in the security company I was in. Next up is Marine 1 and 2. As the names suggest, these two were former Marines. One was an infantry who was in the Battle of Fallujah and continued to see more action for another 6 years before leaving. Marine 2 was a former drill instructor. I'm saying this as a point of reference to show you that these people were not some wannabe thugs taken off the street to become lousy security officers. In fact, 70% of the company are of military or law enforcement background. Anyways, Agent Y was my supervisor of the site. Each site needed a supervisor. Agent Y also happened to be the hospital's main security supervisor. Agent Y and Marine 1 and 2 all went with me to the abandoned section. We all had our own flashlights. We explored essentially the whole building without any incident, until we reached the ICU. This will haunt me until I die. We reached the ICU. We were stopped as there was a 3-way fork. Each hall had a miniature hall connecting to the next. All 3 hallways were parallel to each other. We decided on the far left one and continued down. The plan was to go down all the way and circle back and take the next hallways. If it weren't for what I was about to experience, it was almost entrancing to see all the equipment and whatnot left there to rot. We reached the end of the first hallway when before all of us could turn around, Agent Y was first to notice that Marine 2 was fixated on a doorway. When we all turned in the direction of Marine 2, I immediately felt sick, like I was going to vomit violently. It started to smell like rotten meat. This all took within a span of 3 seconds. When we all faced the doorway, we all immediately noticed it. It was fucking peeking at us from the top of the doorway. It stared at us from the top of the doorway. I was more immediately drawn to its eyes. I would have expected normal eyes, but was instead met with inky blackness. There were voids where its eyes should have been. Marine 1 was first to run, followed by Marine 2. I then ran next, my heart shitting itself. As I was running, I noticed Agent Y outrunning me. For some god-awful reason, I was compelled to turn around to see if it was chasing us. The damn thing was floating towards us. From here, I'm not sure what happened as my brain blacked out. But what I do know is that a few months later, the abandoned building was destroyed. I genuinely wish it would stop here, but it gets worse. Agent Y, 3 weeks after the building's demolition, committed suicide. A few days later, Marine 1 died under unknown circumstances. I tried to live my life without acknowledgement of what I saw, but I still see that godforsaken thing in the corner of my eye. I fear I'm next. Any advice would be of genuine help. Me and my roommates moved into one of my mom's apartments in April of this year. It's a duplex, and we're on the bottom. The previous owners owned this place for about 20 years or so. The house was built around 1915. The lady upstairs has been there for maybe about 7. But anyways, ever since we moved in, shit has been absolutely fucked. Me and my roommates have had our fair share of creepy occurrences as kids, but nothing like this. The first thing we bought a nice rose gold knife set, and we put it in our stove. We heard some weird noises one night, so we both went out to check. We live right in the middle of the town, and at the time, our windows didn't lock. My roommate jokingly grabbed one of the rose gold knives, and I put it back in the knife block. The next day, I did all the dishes, and I noticed that the knife I put back last night was missing. I sent her a pic and asked if she knew where it was. She didn't. This knife had never been used. About 3 days later, we find it in the bottom drawer with our fucking laundry pins. I have so many more things to say that happened to us, so if you want to know, let me know. But me and my roommate both worked this morning, and we got home around the same time. When she got out of the shower, there was a mangled rat body of some sort on a freshly clean bed. We have a camera in our kitchen, out the front door and back door. No one has been in our house. We're so shocked, disgusted, just physically ill. Please, we just need someone's insight. This is escalating. This happened to me over 50 years ago. In Northeast Ohio, my aunt owned a huge 3-story plus full suite attic Civil War era mansion. I would often visit and play with my cousin in this house. As an adult, I realized the house was set up like the house in the movie Clue. It had secret passages connecting certain rooms on opposite sides of the building. My aunt used to rent out the rooms and suites to random people, and some of the long, dark halls had sounds of people. But I wasn't allowed to go past a certain point. And I never saw anyone coming in or out, so I'm not sure there really were other people there. I have a bunch of crazy stuff that happened there, but this is about my last day. I guess I should also tell you that my aunt practiced witchcraft. All these people have since passed away. I do not practice witchcraft. I'm a Christian, but I've seen too much to not believe in evil and the paranormal. Anyway, the layout of the front entrance was that you stepped into a huge room that off to your left was a huge staircase that went upstairs. If you went past that, on the other side of the wall was a small servant staircase that went both upstairs and down into the basement. If you kept going in that direction, you entered a room used as a schoolroom with a wrong map covering one wall and windows that looked to the front yard. And if you went further, you'd be in the kitchen. This was the most evil feeling house I'd ever been in then or since. On the last day I was ever in there, no one else was in the place. Or at least, as usual, I didn't hear anyone talking, and it was eerily quiet. I was in my early teens and had stayed the weekend. My aunt and cousin had to go out and told me they'd be back shortly. I was standing in the schoolroom window, watching them both get in the car in the driveway. Then I heard my cousin's voice say from the basement, "Hey Sarah, come here for a minute." Now I'm looking at the voice of the owner outside, getting in the car, but this was clearly her, and clearly loud enough not to be my imagination. There was no other sound that it could have been mistaken for, and there was such a feeling of dread and evil, even though it didn't particularly sound in an evil tone. I was terrified. Frozen stiff for a minute while I figured out what to do. I was never going to go down there, but my only 2 routes out were past that stairwell, or through the passage in the kitchen to the dining room in the back of the house, and then back through to the front stairwell, because I had to go up to get my money and overnight bag. I closed my eyes and took off running past the basement stairs, upstairs, back down, and out the front door. I did close it, but it wasn't locked. I figured out how to catch the city bus home, and I never went back. I never told my family why I wouldn't go back, and as far as I can remember, they never pushed the issue. The house has long ago been torn down and was a vacant lot for years. Then, a major medical facility in the area purchased the land in the whole few city blocks. It looks nothing like it did then, but I always wonder if I would have died. gone missing or gone insane had I gone down there? I also wonder if the current medical facility on the property is haunted. I live 3,000 miles away now. We moved in there as a family when I was around 7. It was a semi-detached UK house with 2 bedrooms and a loft. The bedroom my brother and I shared had access to the loft via a standard door and a staircase leading up to a large loft. My father used to sleep and work there before he moved out, as my parents were separated for a long time before their divorce. While he still lived there, however, I became accustomed to the sounds of him walking in the loft and down the stairs to my brother's bedroom. This is important for later. Again, I knew inside out what footsteps sounded like when someone was in the loft or walking down the stairs to the bedroom. Anyway, before my father moved out, a lot of shit happened between him and my mother, so I remember starting to feel a deeply troubling energy whenever I was in the house. After he had left, I still continued to hear footsteps of someone pacing up and down the loft, and sometimes down the staircase to the door where my brother and my bedroom was. My mother would often go up there to use the ensuite, so there were many occasions where I heard the pacing and went up thinking I'd find my mother there, but the loft would be empty. I heard these footsteps a lot in the evenings, all the way downstairs in the living room. They were heavy and sometimes would slow down or speed up. I dreaded when my mother would send me up there to get some wrapping paper or something other. I distinctly remember walking up to a landing where the main bathroom, master bedroom, and my bedroom were, while still hearing these footsteps going back and forth. I'd reach the attic door, and the minute I would open it, they would stop. Sometimes, when I felt brave, I'd do a thorough check of the loft space and ensuite, again finding no one there. This went on for months, maybe a year, and to add to the footsteps, the door which led to the loft began to sometimes open slightly and then slam shut. I put it down to the draft despite no windows being open and despite the force in which it would slam. I also deeply considered that I, an 8-year-old, was going crazy. I thought maybe the divorce and the negative experiences in the house were making me see and hear things, and I resolved to confide in my mother for help, which I didn't. One day, my mother wanted to go food shopping. There was a Safeway about a 40-minute walk away from their house, but on that specific day, I was too tired to do the 40-minute walk and threw a tantrum, adamant I was going to stay home by myself. My brother and mum left, and I sat down on the sofa to watch TV. The sofa was against the wall of the staircase leading up to the landing with the bedrooms. After about 20 minutes, I began to hear the footsteps pacing in the loft and started getting spooked. I remember thinking, it's all good. They'll stop soon, or if they don't, nothing bad will happen. There's nothing up there. And then they started coming down the loft stairs. At this point, I turned the TV volume way up. I consoled myself again with the idea that this was a usual thing, and I remember telling myself, it's okay, they'll stay there. But they didn't. I started hearing them, heavier, walking across my room. That feeling was like absolute horror. Like someone was up there and now knew I was alone. Again, I thought, okay, as long as they stay a floor above, I'll be good. I calculated in my head that the steps should have reached the top of the staircase, leading to my floor by now. I held my breath, heard nothing, and was about to dismiss it all as stupidity. But then, it started walking slowly but loudly down the stairs just behind me. To the right of me was the door entering the living room, and I made the decision that I was not going to look. Because there was something there, and I could hear that there was something there. Anyway, I started singing to myself. I sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star so loudly over and over again, and to be honest, I don't remember much after that, apart from hearing a knock at the door after what felt like literally only a minute. And then opening it to see both my mother and brother back with the shopping. The footsteps continued after like they did before this day, as well as the door slamming. I never told anyone, and we moved shortly after. I never brought it up again until I was about 11. By then, I had chalked these events down to my life at that house having a negative effect on my mental health. So my brother and I had gone to dinner with my dad at Pizza Express, and we must have been talking about spooky things. I thought, oh, why not tell them what I experienced in the house? I told the story in a brief way, with not much detail, and I looked up and saw my brother literally go pale. All he said was, I heard them too. And he went on to describe the sound, the speed, and the heaviness of the footsteps. The change of direction, the door slamming, all of it. My father suggested it was the neighbours due to the house being semi-detached. But even as an 8-year-old, I was thorough. I made sure I could differentiate. I often heard neighbours running or going up and down the stairs, and that wasn't it. Before I start telling the story, I want to tell you about the dog my grandparents had. Her name was Billy, and we were one soul. She died at a really young age due to kidney failure, and to understand how close we did everything together. I even understood when she wanted to tell me something. I've never experienced something like that with an animal, but she was very special. And the most important thing that has to do with the story is that she always wanted to protect me. Now to the story. As a child, I practiced handball for many years. I always walked to my practices, and to get there, I had to cross a street. I crossed the street thousands of times before. Sadly, a lot of people don't care about the speed limit and go a lot faster. My mother made me very paranoid about crossing streets and getting hit by a car, so I always checked multiple times if a car was coming or not. So little me checked if it was safe to go, and when I was sure no car was coming, I went my way. As soon as I stepped foot on the road, a car was racing towards me at very high speed. My 7 or 8-year-old self honestly thought at this moment, okay, that's it, I'm gonna die. Until I felt 2 strong arms wrap around my stomach and a tug on my leg. I was now back on the sidewalk and the car flew by. Someone saved me, I thought in my head. With tears in my eyes, I turned around to thank the person that just saved me from death. But there was nobody, not a single soul. The weird thing is that normally there are always people walking by or cars driving past the streets, but not this time. I was very confused and went home totally forgetting where I was originally heading. As I walked into my flat, my mother looked at me and said something about me looking like I've seen a ghost. Well, I guess, kind of. I told my mother what happened, and she said that one of my guardian angels must have saved me. She told me about my great-grandfather that passed away before my birth. That night, I dreamt about a man with big bushy eyebrows and my dog Billy next to him. So I went up to him to say hi and thank him for taking care of my dog. Some years later, I finally saw a picture of my great-grandfather for the first time ever, and I was shocked. He was the man I saw in my dream that night. I truly believe that they saved me that day. My family and I came back late at night from a family gathering. Everybody went to sleep, since it was late. To be clear, back then I had a room in the basement. Next to my room was my sister's room, and next to her room was my parents' bedroom. If you want to go to the parents' bedroom, you've got to go through my sister's room. Then there's a tiny floor, which leads to my room, as well as a bathroom and a stairway. My room also leads to our main floor. After you open the door, there's a stairway going up. So just as I was getting comfy, I heard strange noises from my parents' bedrooms, like something slowly approaching, but not steps, but like something on wheels. I heard it say something that I didn't understand, in a robotic kind of way. I was always freaked out, and I didn't know if I should turn the light off or on. I left it on. It was really close, and as every kid, I pulled my blanket over my head. The next thing stopped before my bed and said, "So?" At this point, I was absolutely terrified and I couldn't move, because I was scared to death. I gathered my courage and watched what was standing there, just watching me. I think it was a witch, just watching me. You might think that sounds stupid now, or it's just the imagination of a child, but hear me out. I live in Germany, and my region is famous for Walpurgisnacht. So basically, all witches meet up at this place on the Hexen Tanzplatz and dance with the devil. So why is this important, you might ask? My aunt once gave my family a witch. It's like a sort of doll that you can hang anywhere, and it looks like the witch is floating on a broomstick. Anyways, this witch is still there, hanging directly before you enter my old room under the stairway I mentioned earlier. She also looks really scary. So now it's getting crazy. My sister once slept in my bedroom since we had guests, and I slipped by my mum and dad. After that night, my sister told me that she saw some sort of witch. To be clear, my sister is 5 years older than me. It could be that she was scared because I've told her about my encounter before, and she was scared after that. Maybe she just imagined all of this. Her reaction the next morning was real. She was really scared. Before this all happened, I want to explain what happened to some stray cats my neighbour, Juan, was taking care of. He would feed her antibiotics and food, and also has more cats around his house. So I was out peeling tomatillos for some food I was cooking in my front yard. I heard some dogs fighting, and this was usual, since my neighbours, too, had chihuahuas, which typically fought and barked all day. They went on for a while, so I checked to see what was wrong, and when I looked over, I saw the 4 dogs ripping the stray cat neighbour 1 was taken care of. Neighbour 2 didn't care, and didn't even call their 4 dogs in. I tried saving it, but it died in my arms, so I asked the neighbour if it was his, to which he said no. And so I decided to bury it in my backyard. I washed my hands and went back to my front yard to keep peeling tomatoes, but I saw something strange happen. This man on a bike I had never seen started to ride back and forth through the alley and near our houses, as if he were looking for something. I didn't think much of this until now. This recently happened a day ago, on my way to work. I woke up at around 4 and started on my way, as I would usually, but as I reached the intersection near my house, I saw a man with a black coat or robe down to his feet. The car lights were very bright, but his face wasn't visible at all. I was spooked, but didn't think much of it, and continued my day as per usual. After work passed, I heard back home, and I got out of my car and went to get my mail, which happens to be near neighbour 1's house. So as I always do, I started a conversation with him. He thanked me for burying the dead cat in my backyard and wanted to say something else. He had told me that he had also experienced and seen some man in a black robe near the same intersection around the same time, 4 a.m, though his experience was much worse. He opened his garage early like he would every other day to start out his yard work. But when he opened his garage and looked out, he was shocked to see a man in a black coat on the sidewalk. The man was standing there and was looking away from the houses. My neighbour grabbed an axe from his garage and waited. The man in the black turned and slowly headed towards neighbour 1. And out of nowhere, another man with exact features and no visible face came from the right side of neighbour 1 and started to walk towards the first man in black. It's as if they were meeting up. Once they got close, they started walking back and forth on the sidewalk. Neighbour 1 stayed there for an hour, but the men didn't stop walking back and forth. The sun started to rise, so he closed his garage and locked his doors. We haven't had any encounters since then. It was around 10 p.m. at night. I was alone in my room, and I had a huge day ahead of me, so I wanted to stay sharp and get some last-minute studying done while on my phone before falling asleep. Then suddenly, I noticed in the corner of my eye, tiny orbs of white light started to amass just outside the window next to my bed. Gradually, the orbs of light grew brighter and more pronounced. As it started to phase through the window, my once darkened room became flooded with almost blinding white streaks of light. As more and more white particles were manifesting themselves right before my eyes, I felt a great fear that something was coming and that I needed to hide myself quickly. So I did the only logical thing I could think of at the time. I dove headfirst under the comfort of my bed coverings. From under my covers it was dark, but I definitely felt safer there despite sensing this unknown presence still approaching me slowly. I panicked as it was happening, but somehow I managed to calm myself down. I definitely didn't feel like I was dreaming. I was totally wide awake. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, but I managed to check my cell phone for the time, and it was only around 10 p.m. at night. Being able to quickly check the time on my phone seemed to confirm to me, at least, that I wasn't dreaming. When I got within a few feet away, I closed my eyes, hoping it would just go away. I felt it stop right before me. I wasn't sure if it was friend or foe, but I knew it was watching me. I felt its grand presence looming over me while I cowered. I also felt it could sense my fear, because as I started to succumb to the fear of possibly dying, I started to hear growling like from a dog. At first it started off soft, but after some silence, there was a loud snarling sound, as if from a wolf. Needless to say, I was very afraid at this point. From there I kept my eyes closed, and I didn't want to move at all, so I stayed still. I felt if I had peeked at that moment, that I might not have survived. I just wanted it to leave me alone. After some brief silence, the orb of light seemed to have shifted its focus from me and floated across the other side of the room into my walk-in closet, where it slowly dissipated. No longer after feeling this presence, I hopped out of bed and followed it towards the closet. Nothing. My supernatural encounter had ended. From time to time, I wonder what would have happened if I had looked at it instead of hiding. Not sure what it was. A cryptid? Interdimensional being? Something or someone astral projecting? Whatever it was anything but a dream. Has anyone experienced something similar? So basically, since I've moved to my apartment complex 3 years ago, I've been experiencing paranormal activity that I've decided to name Bill. In the first few months there, I was experiencing things like hearing someone breathing behind me at night, while in bed or in the bathroom, and seeing tall figures in the hallway or in my dad's room. Bill might also be following me, because in my time living here, I've also been to 2 different psych wards for unrelated personal reasons. At the wards, I also experienced paranormal activity. Seeing tall figures in the hallways or running past a window, and feeling like I was being watched or like something in my room was going to jump me. He's still there after I got released from the psych ward, obviously, because otherwise I probably wouldn't be posting this. Whenever I'm home alone, I keep hearing things like knocking and scratching on the walls, and that same feeling of being about to be jumped from behind. Things have also gone missing, like water bottles that were on my desk, but gone the next day. Things like the shower or sink turning on their own have also happened. Though to be fair, that's more annoying than scary, if you take into account the water bills. I've also been getting touched in random places, like on my arms and legs, or feeling a head laying against my side. I know this all might seem a bit ridiculous, especially considering I named him, but I could really just use some advice on the matter. I've already talked to a friend who's more experienced with spiritual things, and they're convinced I'm dealing with a nuisance or a demon. I wanted some outsider opinions on the matter. In April of 2021, I was on my way to get my medications when I got into a very serious car accident. My dog and I recovered after very serious injuries. When the man hit me, he was going 65 miles an hour on a 30 miles an hour road and blew the stop sign. I'm not one to believe in ghosts, but there was this huge rainbow around my car. I couldn't move for 45 minutes and thought I was dying. I feel like maybe I do have good spirits looking out for us. We survived. In October 2021, my partner had moved in with me at my apartment. I've lived in this apartment completely alone for over a year. Nothing had really been happening, but it was starting in very small incidents. When my partner was in a different room, I was laying on the couch with my dog Kuma and my cat Marley asleep next to me. Our balcony door was locked because I struggled with paranoia. I used to have curtain lights hanging from our balcony door until I noticed that one strand was swinging and it wasn't just subtle. I managed to get a quick video of it, but it stopped as soon as my partner came back. Since 2022 started to now, we noticed our devices are acting up. My television is linked up to my PlayStation 5, so when I turn on the system, it will turn my television on. I work from home, so I'm here 24/7. The television itself has turned itself on multiple times. Now, my PlayStation 5 just turns on regularly by itself. Could that be a glitch? We were also trying to sleep one night and my entire work laptop, monitor and keyboard all turned on after it had been powered down. None of it made sense. Within the last month, I could hear my boyfriend coughing in the living room, but he's at work. Could it have been my neighbour? None of them are home when I'm working. It happens multiple times throughout the day, along with phantom vibrations. This is always something my partner and I disagree with. He swears up and down that he's never heard this vibration at all, and that I need to let it go. The couch vibrates 4 times like a Samsung phone, but that makes absolutely no sense, as none of my friends have left their phone here, and my couch is new. I've noticed that my hair gets blown when I'm either cooking, showering, or working, etc. Today has been what motivated me to write this. I'm currently at work, and I started to hear the coughing again, so I took a break to see if I could catch it, but it stopped. This is going to make me sound like I'm insane, but I had gone to Arby's for dinner, and we had this leftover sauce cup that I didn't use, so my boyfriend threw it away. After 2 days, I noticed it had been out on the counter. I was confused, as I had watched my partner throw it away. It was just hanging out like it had never been touched. Another day goes by, and the sauce cup is upside down next to our dog's bowl. I picked it up to see if Kuma had been moving it, but there were no bite marks, and Kuma would have eaten it. Today, the sauce was directly in front of our shoe closet. My boyfriend said he threw it away 3 times already, and thought it was me taking it out, so we threw it away again. I just threw it away about 45 minutes ago, and I'm worried that it may happen again. What should I do? It's clearly messing with me, and we're already moving, but who knows if it'll follow me. One month ago, in my apartment building, some weird noise started, like someone was doing some construction work on their flat. I didn't pay much attention. Someone should be repairing stuff, or something of that sort. It started on a Friday, and it was almost always in the afternoon when it started, ending at like 2 or 3 a.m. The weekend, same thing. Morning quiet, rest of the day busy, with a noise sounding like someone was hammering something. Everyone that was on the right side of the building was starting to get annoyed, mostly because everyone wanted to rest to be able to work on the next day. Of course, we started to try to find the location of the source, to try to pin down to this one apartment. There's also another building close to ours where the walls connect. I've gone to every apartment. I put my ear near the lock, and almost no sound. The flat most affected is my upper neighbour, where she lives with a daughter. We thought that it should be the apartment above her making all the noise, even though the water supply is shut down. Same with electricity, so logically, no one should be living there. But we had to be 100% sure, so we called the owner and asked her kindly to open the apartment so we could check if someone was using it, or had to force an entrance. No one was there, and the noise could still be heard. So we ruled out that the inhabited apartment was the source. Time goes by, and the phenomenon repeats every day, no mistake. Bangs on the wall, bangs on every division of the apartment of my neighbour, on the furniture, things falling in the bathroom and kitchen, etc. The police were called 3 times, but of course, they couldn't solve anything. They entered this flat, also heard the noises, but couldn't pinpoint where all the sound was coming from. It also travels very fast, from the kitchen to the living room, etc. Also, on this corridor, we started to bang the wooden walls, and we would have replies. Even asking questions and saying, knock once for yes, knock twice for no. We would get replies. If I knock 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, etc., I would get the same number of knocks answering me. It's very weird. Fast forward to the last few days. Both my neighbour and her daughter went away for the weekend. Magically, the sound stopped. I didn't know this until yesterday. I just thought, finally, the fucking noise went away. They returned yesterday. And guess what also returned? Yeah, that's right. Knocking hell again. So I was in the corridor with both my upper neighbour and another from the same corridor chatting. Both her and her daughter were outside the flat, her daughter playing with another girl. And by this time, 0 noises. We're all chilling in the corridor. But later on, her daughter went inside to pick a doll to play with. We started hearing the knocks again. Every single time her daughter went inside, we would hear, after 5 seconds, the knocks. So I asked my neighbour, can I go inside? She replied, yeah, of course. I went inside, in full silence. I stood there for like 30 seconds. Nothing. I come out, ask my neighbour if she could go inside as well. She goes inside, 0 knocks. We ask her daughter if she can go inside again, and boom, knocking all over the place. I kid you not. This didn't miss like 12 times she went inside, every single time. Later on, another neighbour arrives in the corridor. We made the same request. He went inside, 0 noises. Daughter goes in, full-blown knocks. This happened in the north of Iran, Tabaristan. The forests between the mountain and the Caspian Sea have always been known to be home for creatures called jinn, deev, and pari, also known as fairies in Western culture. My aunt and her family went on a vacation in the north. She just bought a new phone that can record video. It was a new thing back then, so she kept recording everything they did on that trip. When they came back home and rewatched the videos, they all quickly noticed something strange in one of the videos. They rent a house that is next to the forest, the last one. In the north of Iran, because of farming rice, houses are not built next to each other in some areas. They made a campfire next to the forest. They used coals for kebab, and then headed back to serve in the house because of flies, annoyance, and bugs. But they left the fire alone because they wanted to come back and sit next to it after eating. When they're eating, my aunt is recording them and the house and explaining the vibes. She then shows the fire through the windows and then zooms in it. Then explains that we made fire here for kebab. Big fire, as you can see. Like she's recording a show to her friends. After the vacation, when they're rewatching the videos, they quickly notice something strange in the part where she zooms on the fire. There are at least 3 blurry human figures around the fire. They move around the fire and then jump over it, as if they're dancing with the fire. The way they behaved is actually a famous tradition that Iranians do in the Scarlet Day festival. We make fire on the last Wednesday of the year to celebrate fire for some ancient religious reasons. After the influence of Islam on Iran, people pretty much call everything supernatural jinn, because its existence can cover anything. Because they can take any form. So everyone pretty much agreed that these are jinns, and they made some prayers, and more special prayers, and said it's not good to talk about them. I personally watched that video on my aunt's phone like 20 times. I was mesmerised by that. I didn't have a phone back then, so when I grew up and understood how important that video was, My aunt's phone was long gone. I've been searching for that video for 5 years now. First, I wasn't even trying to look for the video because I knew it would be impossible. But when I ended up in the north of Iran for university, I met so many locals. I've heard so many similar stories. Most of them are fogged with myth and other extractions. One day, when I told the story to some of my local friends, and they quickly recognized it, they said they've also seen the video. I thought they were lying, but they finished my story before I even told them what the figures were doing. They already knew it. I was blown away. Turns out, my aunt shared that video with some locals because they were excited that they caught jinns on camera. Over the years, the video was shared in the chain of Bluetooth sharings, and many people have seen it back then. So I started asking people if they remember such a clip and found 3 more non-related individuals who have seen it. I tried searching the internet, deep web, dark web, any web you say, and haven't found it. Sometime in 2017, my dog seemed to be staring into my lounge room at night, for no apparent reason. My house is cluttered, so I couldn't do anything to explore it, but every time I'd see him in there, I'd just look into the lounge room as well, trying to see if there was anything there. I couldn't see anything many of the times, so I just asked my dog, "What are you looking at?" He's usually very ready to react to any conversation around, or projected at him. But all these times, he was completely undeterred from staring into the lounge room. So over these months, I'd see him doing this. Something I started to notice that it was always around 11 and 12 o'clock. It really started to freak me out, so I kept looking in when he would do this. For the first time I saw that of a grey figure, and I mean a slightly different hue of grey from the colour the room was in the dark, kind of just floating there looking at me. It was freaky, and I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, because I don't exactly have the best vision. I blinked a few times, and the figure disappeared. I was pretty spooked for the night, and couldn't stop thinking about it. Now once again, over many days, I didn't see any figure when I would look into my lounge room, even though my dog seemed to see it. Eventually I saw it again, but this time it was like trying to hide from me, behind some boxes I had piled up. Once again, just looking at me. I spoke to my dad about the situation, and he said that he believes that when we die, our energy is left behind. So basically, like our soul. And so we're told to go away. It will go away. I ended up seeing my dog looking into the lounge room again, and so I stood there alongside him, ready to say the words. But I felt scared. I didn't know whether it would probably found out, "Oh, my cover is blown," or something like that. So I didn't say go away. At least I don't think so. My memory is very bad, and this is the only part that I'm pretty clueless on. But if I didn't decide not to do it, I think fearfully whispered go away. And then I didn't really see my dog looking into the lounge room anymore. He would just go to bed and sleep. So here is my basic orb explanation. It's not too in-depth, but maybe it can help someone somewhere to understand. Orbs are extremely common type of paranormal misunderstandings. They've become an extremely common misconception in the paranormal community due to many paranormal reality television shows. These shows have spread this misinformation to many believers simply because they require content for their episodes. But if you look deeper into the paranormal community, you'll find that orbs are widely hated and not considered paranormal evidence at all. Orbs are also known in the photography community as backscatter. Many people believe that orbs are paranormal due to the way they appear and disappear and their movement. Orbs are very minute particles or even small insects flying in the air. Whenever there's a light source, it can be reflected by these particles, and the sensitive camera lens can pick up these light reflections. So, in an example of a night vision camera, a dust particle can float into the light and fade into existence. And when it's out of range of the light, or the light is no longer reflected towards the lens, they can fade out of existence. And as for the movement, you have to consider just how small and light these particles are as they float through the air. Any slight difference in air pressure, even a breath or slight movement, could cause them to rapidly change direction. These changes in direction are commonly mistaken as an intelligent pattern. This is known as agneticity, the tendency to infuse patterns with meaning, intention, and agency. An easy way to tell its backstatter is the environment. Normally, people associate old buildings as possibly haunted, but they're also really dusty. As you walk through an old building, you'll kick up dust. So if you go to take photos, you're sure to have orbs. When you're outside, you also have to take into account pollen and insects. You'll also notice that orbs are rarely, if ever, visible in daylight photography. It's always either dark with the use of a flash, or it's poorly lit. Ever since I was about 1.5, I'd have terrible night terrors. I'd scream and cry like I was being murdered while dead asleep. Then when my parents would wake me, I'd act like nothing happened and return to being a normal, smiley toddler. My doctors couldn't figure out why, as my brain looked normal, and they didn't look like night terrors. So my mom brushed it off as she was already dealing with so much. I was born into a house that was built in the early 1800s and was the only building that survived a fire that burned down the whole town. A lot of weird shit went on in that house. It turned out there was a hidden room that was filled with dead animals and stuff for witchcraft and rituals. So we moved to our next house when I was about 2. When we moved, my night terrors got a lot worse. I would wake up with bruises from flailing my body so hard in fear, and I would scream so loudly that the neighbours actually eventually called the police because they thought I was being abused. Up until I was about 10, I had distinct night terrors of a man and his dog standing over my bed, blankly staring at me while they burned to death. I suppressed these memories so deeply that I had no clue that I had any of these night terrors. But my family was very aware and got freaked out when I came home one day with my foster sister and told them about how we played detective and helped solve a mystery where a guy and his dog died in our front yard and we couldn't figure out how. Years passed by. I had other night terrors that I don't remember much of, and they stopped altogether when my family moved to a different house when I was 15. I was a freshman in high school, and something I thought was weird was that I drew a picture of a burning man that seemed mouldy and familiar, but it didn't bother me until a few years later. When I turned 16, my family was eating dinner, and my brother, and he casually made a joke about me being a spawn of Satan because of my night terrors. I laughed because I thought he was making a joke about my night terrors until my mom got mad at him and told him to shut up. That's when I got confused and a little concerned. I asked what they were talking about, and my mom sighed. She reminded me of my night terrors about the man and his dog, and then told me there was an electrical fire in our house about 10 years before we lived there. The entire inside was destroyed, and an elderly man and his dog burned to death while asleep in my room. They didn't want to tell me while we were still living there. I'm now a senior in high school, and I found the drawing and put those together. Kind of scared the shit out of me when I first was told. Has anyone else had a night terror that turned out to be true? The paranormal tales surrounding the Bel Air house are not new. In fact, it dates back to the early 20th century. There had been certain events that brought about the haunting of Bel Air house. It's simply abnormal, due to the fact when you see the Bel Air house, the primary thought you get is that it's an innocent-looking residence that sits on top of a cursed coal mine. However, if you enter the house, you'll come to see that the house belongs to a horror movie. The house had tales of the supernatural, even during the years when it was sitting abandoned. People from the neighborhood claimed to see figures roaming around within the house or peeking out of the windows. These were reported when the house was inhabited. The Bel Air house is situated close to the banks of the Ohio River. This is the land where the French and Indian Wars took place from 1754 to 1763. The house is on a ley line, meaning there is a consistent paranormal energy encompassing the house. The Bel Air house is also believed to be haunted due to a coal mine explosion that took place within the Ohio Valley in 1893, where 42 men died in the explosion and it took days to find their bodies. A humble man with a good reputation named Jacob Hetherington owned all of the coal mines within the Ohio Valley. He additionally worked within the mines along with his employees and his pal Jack, a mule. Jacob married a charming lady named Eliza Armstrong. This humble man was not just the authentic owner of the Bel Air house, but also Bel Air itself. In March 1893, it was widely said that the Hetherington coal mines at Bel Air were to be deserted after the explosion. The operators had spent $8,000 in an attempt to put the fire out and concluded that no more efforts would be made. This explosion happened in coal mine number 1, and the frightening part is that the Bel Air residence is located on top of coal mine number 1. In 1847, Jacob Hetherington built the Bel Air house near the Shawnee burial caves. Because of the house's location, it's believed to serve as a portal to the realm of spirits. Also, in 1754, the French and Indian conflict ran riots through Bel Air. The bloodshed still stains Bel Air. Also, it's believed the place this house is located on was used by Native Americans to perform occult rituals. After Jacob, Alex Hetherington inherited the fortunes, but the business started to fail due to Alex's strange state. He reported seeing demons and claimed that they tried to kill him and also had sporadic seizures. People believed that he was haunted and cursed by the spirits of the people who died in the coal mine explosions. Alex was put into a mental asylum, and the property moved into the hands of his daughter, Lyde. After a few years, she even died inside the house itself. After her death, Edwin tried all he could to commune with the spirit of his sister, with the help of multiple occult rituals. It's believed that these rituals made this house a portal to the realm of the dead. It's said that the kid of one of Edwin's servants was pushed out of the window in the attic, as she had a powerful bloodline that would lure a specific demon inside the house. He strongly believed that this demon would help him commune with the sister's spirit. But after this incident, 3 other people died in a similar fashion by jumping out the window in the attic. After the house's abandonment, neighbors started to report seeing apparitions on the windows of the house. The house then went into the possession of Kristen Lee, and she moved into the house with her family. Kristen reported making contact with multiple malicious spirits and documented the terrific experiences she had. Because of multiple terrible experiences, she eventually had to move out of the house. The house is said to be haunted by multiple spirits, with Emily Davis being the most prominent one. Some say that she's a little girl, while others say she's a disconcerting demon who hides in the identity of a little girl. This entity is often spotted inside the attic. Paranormal activity is never short inside the house, with visitors reporting hearing voices and footsteps, and seeing phantoms and shadow figures. Poltergeist activity has also been reported inside the house, with visitors being physically attacked and scratched by the unknown. The Bel Air house is now open to paranormal investigators, and it can be rented from their official website. Kristen, who's the current owner, still hosts the place and shares the creepy encounters she has inside the house. So if you're brave enough, try paying it a visit once. In a quiet and scenic town named Atchison in Kansas sits a house whose characteristics are completely different from its locality. A phantom named Sally had reportedly made this house its home, and this has given the house its well-known name, the Sally House. It's claimed that even the bravest of hearts break emotionally inside the house because of the eerie atmosphere it offers. Built during the mid-1800s by the Finneys, It was used by Dr. Charles Finney as his clinic. He was a local physician and used the house to practice medicine. He used the bottom floor to perform surgery and examinations and used one of the bedrooms as his office. The family initially lived inside the building, but eventually moved out because of the limited space inside the house. On a dreadful night, a panicking mother brought her 6-year-old daughter named Sally to the house for treatment. The kid was going through extreme pain and suffering, and the mother begged Charles Finney to treat her. After performing a thorough examination, he confirmed that she had appendicitis and decided to operate on her before her appendix burst. Because of the emergency, Charles Finney did not wait until the anesthesia's effect was felt and proceeded to surgically operate on the girl. This, however, proved to be the wrong choice, as Sally died on the operation table. However, before her death, she went through extreme pain, with reports saying her screams were heard throughout the street. After all, what else could a kid do who was being cut open in a half-day's date do other than scream? The house was left abandoned after this incident, and locals say that occult rituals were performed in the house's basement after its abandonment. The house was later bought by a young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, who moved into it in 1993 with their newborn. They eventually moved out of the house again after Tony was attacked by an unknown entity inside the house. This led to the house being featured on a television show named Sightings, which increased its popularity among the paranormal investigators community. The Sally house was listed on Zillow for $1 million in February 2016, and then its price greatly dropped to almost $500,000 in August 2016. In November 2017, it ended up being taken off the real estate market. Some claim that the house is haunted by the spirit of Sally, while others claim that a demon that was called by the cultic rituals the house hosted haunts the house, and apparently hides under the identity of Sally's apparition. Also, after investigations, the Kansas Paranormal Group claimed that the phantom of a middle-aged woman also haunts the house. The house's former resident Tony reports seeing his dog growl at the empty spaces, mainly near the upstairs nursery. He also reported that he eventually started feeling scratches on his chest and abdomen while he stayed in the house. He says that the operating area grew cold all of a sudden and objects moved all on their own. He says that the event where he was lifted and pushed off the stairs by something that can't be explained proved to be the last straw. One of Atchison Chamber of Commerce members, Andrea Clements, reports getting a headache and scratchy feeling in the back of her throat every time she enters the house. A paranormal investigator named Elijah had investigated the house multiple times, and every time we've come, it's gotten progressively more intense. What we feel, it's more dangerous, is what he had to say. He firmly believes that the house is haunted just by Sally, but also by something more sinister as well. During his investigations, he reports seeing balls and toys move on their own in the upstairs rooms, and also reports hearing footsteps inside the house during the night. Visitors to the house say that their gadgets abruptly stop working inside the house, only to work again after they leave the place. They also say that batteries drain extremely fast inside the house. Some have seen objects move on their own, and some even say that things were aggressively thrown at them by something invisible. Many visitors reported seeing mysterious scratches and bruises on their bodies during and after the visit. It should be noted that most who report being hurt by the entities inside the house are men. Visitors have also reported being touched and feeling cold spots on their bodies. Some have also experienced sporadic mysterious drops in the temperature. The house not just scares people, but also animals, as trained guide dogs constantly refuse to enter the nursery and growl and bark at empty spaces. Many psychics who have tried to commune with the entities inside the house have also claimed the house to be haunted, and the house has also made many skeptics who enter it leave it as believers of the paranormal. The house is now open for public visits and overnight stays, which can be booked on their official website, and continues to stay a hotspot for paranormal fanatics.